Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we are, for people who are just listening as a podcast, people on YouTube, I'm going to give them credit and say they can probably figure this out on their own. But for people listening just as a podcast, I will tell you we are recording this inside Ohio Stadium on the Tuesday of Notre Dame week. We walked in here. It was like, oh, the sun's nice. It's a nice day. It's not too windy. And, as long as they don't start playing music in here, this will be great. And no sooner was that sentence out of your mouth than, Tony, what happened?
I think it was a lone sousaphone, maybe a French horn, from off in the distance, plays a sad string of, I don't know what it's exactly called, just a sad note, or perhaps a, hey, I'm right here, you idiots, note. And then others have chimed in, so it's actually kind of nice. You get a little bit of the band experience without losing the monetization ability of this video.
And yes, just for your record, for your future reference, the marching French horns, I believe, are called mellophones. I believe that is accurate. But yes, it is sousaphones. There's a sousaphone in the north end of the stadium, and there's a sousaphone in C-Deck right over by the bell tower. But here we are in Ohio Stadium. And Tony, how many days until we're back here for an actual, real, live Ohio State football game?
Is it 5, Tom?
It's, no.
4?
No. Yes, congratulations. Good job, bud.
96
are you talking about
hours. Tomorrow or today?
96. Well, is there a real life football game happening tomorrow? No. Well, then, okay, yeah. 96 hours or so, we'll be back in here for a real, honest to goodness Ohio State football game. If you ask me, it's been a little too long, but I think something that I'm gonna guess some of our listeners are also looking forward to.
Yeah, and for the viewers behind us, you can see beautiful Safe Flight Field.
Don't. Nope.
Here at Ohio Stadium. So, Tom, today we talked with Ryan Day, defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, tight end Cade Stover, safety Ronnie Hickman, left tackle Paris Johnson. A lot of the talk, surprisingly, about Notre Dame. A lot of the discussion about the unknowns that Notre Dame is going to bring on both offense and defense. And we are going to cover all of that throughout the week. Plenty more shows to come. The morning show, Buckeye Weekly. I think the most interesting thing that I picked up from Jim Knowles, other than he is completely confident in this defense, which is a very good sign, when asked about Tyler Buckner, the Notre Dame quarterback who's played sparingly, like played in 10 games, but threw 2 or 3 passes a game as a running quarterback. They're like, how do you scout him? Do you go back to high school? And he's like, no, we do not go back to high school. You scout what you can, and then you trust the defense. You trust the scheme. You trust the ability to alter it and adjust as you need. So it's so much more about what Ohio State does than necessarily what Tyler Buckner and the Notre Dame offense does.
It feels very much like Jim Knowles is coming into this game saying, why should I be worried? They're the one with the first-time starting quarterback. And, there's not a lot of film with Tyler Buckner throwing passes as a college player. Guess what that means? Tyler Buckner hasn't thrown a lot of passes as a college player. I feel like around 11:30 on Saturday night, we're going to know a lot more about Jim Knowles and how straight up he is with his pre-game/preseason assessments. Because, boy, oh boy, Tony, he is a fairly optimistic gentleman right now, I would say. I'm just going to read you a couple quotes. Quote, "We're ready. We're 100% ready to go." He was asked, how ready are you? 100%. We're ready. He was asked, what are you feeling good about right now? What's giving you some anxiety? And he said, the exact quote, "Who said anxiety?" Like Jim Knowles sounds like he is sleeping real well. If you are to believe Jim Knowles as he presents himself right now, Jim Knowles is feeling real good about life, real good about his defense, and apparently real good about the matchup with Notre Dame.
The good news is he didn't say anything about a decided schematic advantage. That would have been a bad sign. Never brought those famous words from Charlie Weiss up. But he said last week, I have no concerns. This week he echoed that statement and he's talked all week, all month long about the defensive line, talked about the linebackers, and really there's no areas that he's brought up like, well, we still need to get this shored up. Like, all of the starters are known, everything is known, the packages are known where guys are, and I think when you have no mysteries, then that lessens your concerns, because you're not inclined to put players in a position that they can't handle, because that was a lot of last season, because you didn't know what people could do. Let's see if they can do this. Nope, they can't. At least now he knows what everybody can do, and then you begin to explore more. So I'm very excited to see what this defense looks like. Not as excited, I think, as Jim Knowles.
Yeah, I can't fathom anyone possibly being as excited as Jim Knowles. There were some moments last year where you did have the WKRP, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. You've had a couple, as God is my witness, I thought linebackers could cover in space kind of moments over the last few years.
I thought Bryson Shaw could play center field.
Jim Knowles, it feels like, he doesn't have 100% of his defense in. But it feels like he's very confident with what they have in there, and he's very confident that what they have in there is going to be more than enough to do what they need it to do. I am truly fascinated to see what this defense looks like on Saturday, because we are being led to believe right now, the way it's being talked about, this is sort of presenting itself as if it's not just going to be like, oh, that was an improvement over last year. It's presenting itself as, this is a whole different ball game. And, we can talk about this maybe a little later in the week, but, Notre Dame, I don't think, presents a terrible matchup for Ohio State in terms of, the wide receiver talent just isn't what will probably challenge Ohio State. So if they can stop the run, and, stopping the run is kind of job one, and that was something that's been talked about today as well. If they can stop the run, it's like, well, okay, then you've got a tight end, and that can only get you so far.
And then it's just about making plays that are there to be made, just making the tackles. And Ryan Day is excited as well, talking about last year they didn't know anything, didn't know enough about the defense. Now they know what everybody can do. Everything is settled. He will get to see, I asked, the excitement level, the nervousness level, and he said he can't wait to see his guys flying around. This is 8 months in a building stage of this, and not the entire season riding on it, but about 94% of the season is riding on this, and knowing that the defense is going to get better as the season goes on, for me, this is going to be the one thing to watch over everything else is the defense. And if it's great, do we make too much of it? If it's not great, do we make too much of it? Of course, we're going to make too much of it either way.
So your question is, will there be an overreaction one way or the other to week one? Is that your question?
It's more of a statement that I thought you might want to agree with.
Yeah, it feels like historically that's traditionally been how things have gone. Week one always means this is how it will be forever. Traditionally, and then that lasts about 6 days, and then week two happens, and it's like, oh, well, this is a little different. And it feels to me like, just the way guys were talking, I don't think focus is going to be an issue this week. And I think part of that is top 5 matchup, first ever season opening top 5 matchup at Ohio Stadium. That's a whole bunch, and you have the brands, and there's a conversation about the brands of, these two big Midwestern, maybe the biggest brands in the country. That's all well and good. You get the sense talking to people, the amount that people are talking about toughness, and the amount of, Ryan Day talking about competitive stamina again. Mm-hmm. You get the sense that they're all a little bit tired about not only hearing how they lost to Michigan, but also hearing how you lost to Michigan because you got your butts whooped in the trenches and you weren't tough enough. And it feels like that has really, really stuck with people within the program, and they are extremely interested in changing the narrative around that on Saturday evening.
Well, head coach Ryan Day was asked, how do you keep your guys grounded? How do you keep them from getting big heads based on all of the high rankings that they have? And he's like, there are no big heads. Everybody remembers the way last season ended. There are no big heads in this building, and there won't be. And so that's obviously what you want to hear. The toughness thing has been a huge factor. Players are talking about how as it gets to this point, you're tired of hitting your own teammates. You want to go hit somebody else. And the need to just bring everything you've been taught and learned and prepared for to the one game, but you can't let it be more than just a game. And I go back to what like Urban Meyer was told from Lou Holtz, to bring it back to the Notre Dame thing about playing in a national championship in 2006 or whatever, like you can't play the game in December. You have to play it when it actually happens in 40 days or whatever. And it's the same thing with this, as Brian Day was saying. Well, how do we prepare? What do we do to worry about Saturday? You focus on today. You take care of it today. Tomorrow you take care of tomorrow. And as they said, we're going to keep tweaking that defense and preparing that defense up until, 7:29 before kickoff is what Ryan Day said about Saturday night. So I think defense as a whole, everybody is excited, upbeat. Paris Johnson was asked about it, and he was talking about how you saw it the first day the pads went on in spring, that things weren't as easy as it used to be, and talked about counter plays that used to work the year before no longer worked. Guys are faster. They're moving quicker. They know what they're doing, and I just wonder how easy is it going to be for Joe Sixpack to us to see it in action. Like, oh, these guys are much faster, and it's tackles at the line of scrimmage, tackles in the backfield. No time for Tyler Buckner, where you're like, oh, okay, well, this is the best defense in the nation. Sorry about your luck, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan State.
Yeah, Paris Johnson was talking about how the defense just played so much faster, and he's like looking around and it's like, this is the same guys as it was last year, and they're playing so much faster. Yeah. And, as far as Joe Sixpack and what Joe Sixpack is and isn't getting noticed, Jim Knowles talked about Lathan Ransom in that context. And, said he really jumps out. Anyone can see it. Unspoken subtext. Even morons like you, the media, sitting in front of me. But he said he just has such an intuitive feel for where the ball is going to be. But I feel like, again, we're going to know so much more about Jim Knowles as a human being on Sunday, because it's like the level of confidence you have here, either you don't know what you're talking about, or you're just, you're Mr. Happy Chat, or like you do know what you've got, and you do know what schematically they can do, and you are looking at the speed and size and strength of these players, which is not what you had at Oklahoma State. This is kind of a level above that, and just sort of tenting your fingers like Mr. Burns and just saying excellent. And I mean, until you see otherwise, it feels like it's maybe the latter. Jim Knowles does not strike me as a fool, so that makes me think Jim Knowles may in fact know what he has here.
He was in an interesting mood. I don't know if playful was the right word, but comfortable, I think, but also not talkative. When asked several things, he would just give a pretty short answer and then be like, what else do you want? Like, when asked if he's going to be, Ryan Day was asked, hey, where are the coaches going to be, upstairs or on the field? I was like, well, offense is going to be the same. Defense, we're still figuring that out. We'll talk about it later in the week. And so Jim Knowles asked the same thing. And he's like, yeah, we're working it out. And they're like, don't you think it's kind of late in the process to be working it out? He's like, I know where I'm going to be. I'm just not telling you. So to give you another idea of his mood right now, like he seems very loose, not tight. And I don't want to just keep harping on the defense and coming back to Jim Knowles. It's just, we, like you said, we will see. The example I always go back to is Family Guy, when all of the guys start up a band and they get to their first concert and they realize we don't know how to play instruments, and you just get totally exposed. I'm not expecting that, but the confidence that has been shown is eye-opening. But I also remember writing stuff last year, talking with Matt Barnes, and we feel great about all of our safeties. Do you? Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? Should you have?
Yeah.
And maybe they did because they had Josh Proctor and Lathan Ransom, and then they didn't have Josh Proctor. But
yeah, and having those guys back, I think is a big difference there. I turned to Mike Bassford at one point. I was sitting in the back there, and Mike Bassford, one of the Ohio State sports information staff, and said to him, like, Jim Knowles has the Jeff Hafley vibe, where it's kind of a similar personality, and it's like, it's like he's got a sense of humor. He's funny. He's also he's got a little cocky. He knows he knows that he knows what he's doing, and I guess if you have a Jeff Hafley type defensive season, boy, I think 100 out of 100 Ohio State fans would take that. 10 out of 10 dentists. There is no hater here. There are 10 out of 10 dentists would take that in the city of Columbus right now. And you just wonder, is that a personality thing, or is that a confidence thing and a I know you're going to find out on Saturday kind of thing?
that sure seems like the way everybody is talking. And One of the other interesting things about Jim Knowles, somebody asked, at some point before the game, are you going to be out on the field? You know, you're the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Your first game in the horseshoe. Are you going to look around? Are you going to appreciate the moment? And his answer was no. Like, his job is to prepare the team and then call the plays, call the defense. That's what he's being paid to do. That's what he owes to the players. So he said, when I get old, I can appreciate the moments that we have. But like now, he's, you know, that's the matter of fact. That's the business-like approach that he's got for this. That, you know, because of course you're expecting, of course, yeah, I'm going to take a moment and just appreciate, because we've heard him talk about recruits or players where he said, like, you know, it only took you 18 years to get here. It took me 56 years to get here, and how appreciative he was to be here. But now that the moment is here, it's all business.
Yeah, and one of the other things that he said that I thought was really interesting is he was talking about that, but he said it's the same process. You know, Oklahoma State to Ohio State, it's the same process. The expectations are different, and I mean that is someone who's coming in here with his eyes wide open, and you know, this is how often on a road game do we hear guys say it's a business trip? Well, you know, bowl games, it's a business trip. This is, you know, it's a home game. This is very much a business trip for Jim Knowles, because he does know what the expectations are. And, you know, I mean, I go back to Ryan Day. I'm pretty sure Ryan Day talked about in one of his first games, you know, kind of like taking a second to, it was Urban Meyer when he was first year, like taking the headset off to listen to Hang On Sloopy at the end of the third quarter, and just like, wow, I'm here, I'm the head coach of Ohio State. If you're more locked in than Urban Frank Meyer, Tony, Urban Meyer, famously not a, not a particularly focused individual, not super, right? I mean, like, am I remembering that right? It's been a few years, right?
Yeah. I think at some point, Jim Knowles is probably going to take off his headset and be like, turn that dang music down. Like, I'm trying to focus here, and you guys are doing all this college stuff. Like, this is real life. We've got to be serious. Enough of this music and this playground stuff. Let's go hit some people. Speaking of hitting people, Ryan Day also talked about the violence that he likes from this defense. Like, they run around and there's violence, and it's something that you like to see. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to keep harping on the defense. We could talk about the offense a little bit. Mayan Williams, Travion Henderson will get the start. How that goes, you know, depends on how things go. And Mayan Williams will get carries. Ryan Day said that Dallin Hayden may even get some carries, but I would expect, as we have long expected, those two just to be the workhorses. And if somebody gets a hot hand, you ride them. And the focus on establishing the run, the talk of establishing the run, the importance of setting that tone, as Paris Johnson said, like, everybody knows we could throw the ball. We will take more pride in having an identity of running the ball than anything close to, like, good job, you could throw the ball. But can you, because the other question is, yeah, but you can't run it. Like,
yeah.
So you have to be able to do both. And so they are really, really focused on that. And you expect Notre Dame to come out running the ball because they have a young quarterback. But, you know, will Ohio State come out running the ball?
Yeah, and it feels like there's a little bit, this is maybe like a little bit of a something to prove thing, where as a coach, you have heard for the last 10 months, hey, remember that time you lost to Michigan? That was kind of bad, huh? And remember how they ran the ball over you and you couldn't run the ball over them? What was the deal with that? What was up with that? And, you know, I think the offensive line heard that. I think the running backs heard that. I think the coaches heard that. I think the defensive line heard that. I think the linebackers heard that. I think that's one of the reasons that Jim Knowles is at Ohio State and not at Oklahoma State this year. And it does feel like you might, come out and make a statement. And, you know, do they come out and start running the ball drive one? Maybe you come out and you think you've got something and you hit a big play, and then you come out and run the ball after that. They are going to want to run the football on Saturday. And, you know, you go back through the last 4 or 5 Ohio State seasons, the ones where they've been able to run the ball, the ones where they've had a Trey Sermon, the ones where they've had the J.K. Dobbins season, when they're able to run the ball, they can throw it. Like, throwing the ball, boy, go back to 1992 or so and have, play this conversation for people and say, well, yes, of course Ohio State can throw the ball all over the stadium, and they're going to have 4, 5, 6 passing touchdowns a week, as one does. Can they run the ball? Yeah. That's the difference. If they can throw the ball, you can have a 2018, 2021 kind of season. If you can run the ball, that's when you get 2019, 2020.
speaking of past seasons, the 2002 team, national title team, will be honored during this game. Jim Tressel will be here. Ryan Day talked about just having that 2002 team, their impact on the city of Columbus, their impact at Ohio State. And he tells his team, like, look what national championship teams at Ohio State are remembered. They are celebrated for long after that one season. And so this is an example for the current team to look at, to want to be like. They've come close, and they have come less close last year. So to have that as right out of the gate, like, this is the expectation. Look at these guys. Mm-hmm. Listen to the crowd. Mm-hmm. Listen to the crowd, celebrate them. Listen to the crowd, celebrate that coach. And like that would be some motivation in itself, even if there were no big time game to play immediately afterward.
Yeah, well, I mean, we go on these road games, and it's, Indiana celebrating the 1987 Copper Bowl champion team. Like, wow, great job. What now? And
Anthony Thompson couldn't make it, but we have his grandkids and his neighbor.
Yeah, it's you go to these games, and it's 10-win. The 10-win Indiana or Illinois Fighting Illini, Sugar Bowl, Big Ten champions. This is the biggest day in Illinois, in Memorial Stadium in 20 years. What a thrill to have them back. And Ohio State won 11 games last year, Rose Bowl champions. Everyone was like, what the heck is wrong with you guys? What a miserable disappointment of a season. And we can talk about realistic expectations and what constitutes and doesn't constitute success, but the consensus around Columbus is that does not constitute success. And I think that is something that, that has been made very clear to this team over the last year, that there are three expectations. You beat Michigan, you win the Big Ten, you win the national championship, and they have embraced that. That's something that they're not shying away from. That is they talked openly about that repeatedly this fall. Those are the three expectations. That's what makes a successful season in Columbus. And yeah, I mean, realistically, of course you have to say that. You can't say, well, we're going to get pretty close and that would be okay too. Realistically, you make the college football playoff. At that point, you've had a very good season, and then sometimes it's a matchup thing. Sometimes you have, a ball bounce a certain way, or a receiver take 5 steps and the ball get called incomplete. I mean, lots of things can happen at that point. But, I think it has been made very clear to this team over the last year what does and doesn't constitute success. And then you're going to have one of those examples of success here, and all you got to do is win 14 games. But this year, they got to win 15.
Yeah, it's college football, not college hand grenades. You got to be better than close. And so one of the other things, it's a huge recruiting weekend, bringing in all kinds of defense, 5-star defensive ends, basically. It's just defensive end after defensive end. Huge weekend. Ryan Day was asked, how much time are you going to spend with them? And he's like, well, we've already spent the time with them. Like this week, on Saturday, it's about, there's the game. It's about preparing the team, and there'll be minimal contact with the players, with the recruits. Afterwards is really when you spend time with them. Even after the game, there's not going to be much time because it's going to be midnight, and kids got to go to bed and all of that stuff. But a huge recruiting weekend.
Is that what college kids do on a Saturday night?
Yes, my mother may be watching still. So yes, Saturday night, that's already 30 minutes after curfew. So they'll get they'll ride their bikes home and just be quiet. But a big recruiting weekend that is probably the biggest one of the year. This is the one that everybody's been pointing to, everybody's been trying to get tickets to. So just as Ryan Day said, he wants the recruits to see the environment. And night game, even though it won't be night at kickoff necessarily, but as long as everything goes well, I don't know how many commits they'll get from this, but you couldn't ask for a better situation, environment, and right now the weather looks perfect.
Yeah, the weather looks like you're probably in the low 80s, high 70s around kickoff time, partly cloudy. Again, we're 96 hours out, so what could possibly change? Absolutely nothing. But you're right, it is set up to be exactly what you want a in-season visit weekend to be. Guys come in the spring, guys come in June. You can have a whole weekend. You want to go sit in Ryan Day's office for an hour and talk? Absolutely. Go ahead and do that. You can do that whenever you want. That's fantastic. When you're coming in for a game, you're going to get the academic tour. You're going to get the tour of campus. You're going to get to maybe spend some time with some players, something like that. But you're not, Ryan Day cannot sit with you in his office for an hour on Saturday. He's got other stuff he's worrying about at that point. You're going to see him on Sunday. And I talked to Alex Gleitman about this exact thing on the episode of the morning show, Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, that dropped on Tuesday morning. So make sure you listen to that. And he went into some detail on some of the guys who are visiting this weekend as well. But this is a huge recruiting weekend. This is, I said to him, biggest recruiting weekend of the season. It was like, this is one of the biggest recruiting weekends, like, in memory, period. There are so many guys coming in. You've got multiple 5-star defensive ends for 2023 coming in. You've got some 2024 guys who are kind of top 5, top 10, top 15 kind of players nationally coming in. There and if you come in and see an Ohio State game and the crowd is loud and there's a ton of anticipation and college game days here and all that kind of stuff, all of that adds up to, like, this is one of these things where it's like, oh, I would like to play my college football there. It's the reason that Penn State does all their big recruiting things on whiteout weekends. Because it's like, oh, well, that's is every Penn State Florida Atlantic game exactly like the whiteout? Not exactly.
Change the subject.
Penn State usually wins against Florida Atlantic, so it's not like a typical whiteout game, but they, it is a real opportunity to get these guys on campus. And, if you've already done the academic sell and the, we'll develop you for the NFL kind of sell, just like, well, what's it like to play there? It's like, well, come to the Notre Dame game and find out.
Yeah, it's like this every week, even the day games. So anything else before we go?
Arkansas State's next week. Is that going to be exactly the same?
Yes, like a mirror image, but also come to this one, not that one, because all your friends are going to be here.
That's true. Good thinking.
Anything else?
No.
You good? We're good? Okay. That will do it. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Remember, we are at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So if you are wondering where we have been, if you've not seen us, that's where we are. We're also here on YouTube. As you're watching us now, go ahead and hit that bell to get notified. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you would like to become a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com, I highly recommend it. You can access us there. You can reach us there. We're always there. Reach out to us, say hello, let you know what you think of the site. So thank you all very much, and we'll talk to you guys later.